welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to GeekWatch, a subsidiary of the monastery, the open bar of the internet. I am your one and only gaming monk, better known as Mildra, and with me I have two of my good brothers here in the temple. One half of the of the Adventures of the Monk and the Monarch, good brother Monarch, as well as our resident TNA watcher.
Probably not for too much longer, but they have some good stuff.
And the man of 1,000 runes, the CEO of Zadari Enterprises, and the bane of my fucking existence, good brother Xanatrix.
Zadari Enterprises would like to remind you to bully every tourist in every hobby ever, all the time, for eternity, because they all deserve to burn in fire! That is all.
Yeah, no good comes from tourists, or from posers. Also, Coops, get your ass in here. But there is a certain meme that has been shared quite a bit. The song Copacabana. That is going to be apropos for this week.
Because you're coping and seething.
Because one of the first steps to dealing with a problem is to admit that a problem is there in the first place. And if you insist that the problem is not there, and insist that everyone else accept that there is no problem, you end up making the problem worse. I know some of you were probably thinking of the meme, "There is no war in Ba Sing Se." And technically speaking, there was no war in Ba Sing Se. There was just a bent knee.
Or, of course, the meme that is in our splash screen. This is fine.
Yep, I specifically told Shades to use that meme because it was so apropos. The other thing I'd be tempted to bring up in this is the stories of Nero, as he's playing the fiddle while Rome burns.
Even if that isn't actually what happened, it's very poetic.
It certainly wasn't what actually happened, but the thing about that story is it's a good metaphor for leaders who are more concerned with their own entertainment or their own distractions instead of focusing on the actual problems.
Yes.
Even when the problems are right at your door.
Yes.
That's why that phrase keeps showing up.
Yes. But our goddess of the Umu will still save us all. I'm not wrong.
Yeah. So, we haven't talked about comic books in a while. And I do want to illustrate one thing. Some people may say that in doing this that I'm a hypocrite because I've called out people for their performative cynicism. This is not us doing performative cynicism. This is us laughing at a problem that is self-inflicted, and a culture that creates its own problems. That is not the same as performative cynicism.
It's not only us laughing at people who created their own problems and can't admit they exist, but laughing at the fact that we predicted this shit and none of y'all listened. Much like Cassandra and her prophecies, none of y'all wanted to lend an ear.
People of Nottingham, lend me your ears!
Disgusting!
But this is something that has been culminating for a long time, and some of you may recall a few years ago we did an episode about bridging the gap because we along with so many others were noticing that you had so many people who were getting into characters from Marvel or DC or what have you, but they weren't reading comics. And one of the things we had said at the time was the big problem was the fact that if somebody gets into say Spider-Man through the Sam Raimi movies, and then tries to read the current comics, they're going to be lost. If somebody was a fan of say the X-Men through the Fox movies, and then they read some of the House of X stories or all that weird ass Krakoa shit, they're going to have no fucking idea where to start. We've often heard this line about how it's so hard for people to get into comics because of all the backstory that they have to read. I think that's bullshit. Especially when comics keep resetting themselves, which is another issue entirely.
I think there's one situation where it isn't bullshit, Monk. And that's when somebody asks another comic enthusiast, hey, if I really want to get into Spider-Man, where should I start? Because then there's the one question that they do have to ask: which Spider-Man? Let's not forget all of the different runs of types of heroes from. Anything Marvel Unlimited, for fuck's sake, is way different than the normal base comics. But
what are you talking about? There's only been one Spider-Man, Peter Parker.
Yes. But what about Spider-Man Unlimited, Monk? Or your friendly everyday neighborhood Spider-Man, Monk? Or
you know why I had to make the joke.
There is no Miles Morales in New York City.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that's the one question where it can be hard to determine where to start. But once you've got that question answered, it's easier.
Yeah. And obviously, that's not going to be the case with every character within the big two. Yeah.
Although, my favorite one is, where do I start with Iron Man? And I'm like, that's a question. Do you want the Iron Man whose entire body is just neural cells? Because I actually love Iron Man Unlimited.
Mm-hmm. Don't you mean Ultimate?
Yes, Ultimate. That is what I meant. Thank you. Mm-hmm. Words. They mean things.
Yes, they do. We may not agree on what they mean, but they certainly mean things.
I think we specifically tend to agree more often than not on what certain words mean, and then everybody else hates us for agreeing.
That is true. But I'm bringing all that up to kind of give the setup, because we've been seeing the thing that we had predicted for the longest time, that unless the big two shape up, that things were going to backfire. And now we're seeing even more comic stores closing, while at the same time you see people go, oh, comics are doing great, they've never been doing better. And they point to sales numbers, except those aren't actually sales numbers, those are order numbers. And they also point to numbers where comic books are being thrown together with young adult books and graphic novels into one metric, which ultimately makes that metric useless.
Yeah. See, if you're using it as a metric to like just gauge overall interest in certain thing, or like just in comics in general, I kind of use air quotes there to like mean all types of comics, it's fine. It's that they're using it to say the Western industry is doing fine, when it's clearly not applicable there.
Zan, would you say it's a Mott and Bailey situation?
Absolutely, especially when they do the whole grouping a bunch of different types of mediums together as if they're the same medium, like you pointed out with manga and comics being grouped together.
Yeah.
Like, I would group them together just to kind of make the point of, obviously, the whole medium of just reading the picture books, people want that. It's
the
it.
problem
The
is
Western isn't giving them any.
the
Well,
reason why I say it's useless is that you don't is that
Yeah.
when you're combining those three markets
Yeah.
into one like that, you don't know where one ends and one begins.
Yeah.
and specifically with the differences between Western comics and the manga industry, there are some significant differences. Not the least of which being that you don't really have to jump around storyline to storyline to get
Yeah.
the full picture of a single hero. It's all usually self-contained in
Yeah.
manga.
Hmm.
Yeah.
But there's the big thing that was the reason why I wanted to wanted to tackle this has less to do with that and more to do with the culture problem. And a bad culture will snuff out any attempts at good or any attempts at fixing a given issue. I mean, part of the to use a not to just not to go too far on a tangent, but I want to use a sports example. Some of you are more than familiar with the fact that I've taken great joy in laughing at the Dallas Cowboys every time they lose. And
Yep.
laughing at the fact and the reason why is not because of some division rivalry. I mean, I'm in Minnesota, but I don't consider the Cowboys a division rival. Like I have plenty of that with everybody else in the black and blue division. No, it's because the fan base, the front office insist on injecting hopium every single year about this is going to be their year. This is going to be the year they get back to the promised land. This is going to be the year they get that sixth ring. And every single time they end up eating their own ass in unique and different ways, either due to lack of discipline, lack of planning, or lack of understanding the problems that they have as a team. And that's why they get. And at the same time, while they keep embarrassing themselves every postseason they're in, they keep calling themselves America's team. And when you thump your chest like that, and then you can't deliver, you get everything you have coming to you. And to bring this back into the culture when it comes to the big two in comics, you have a bunch of people talking about how the industry is never been doing better. It's booming and all that. And yet you've got people like Mags Visaggio begging for money on social media. Like to the point of putting up their Cash App or Venmo to the to the point where um to the point where and Eric had it gave a whole new segment to this sort of antics called the Beg Seg. You know, undercutting it with the, with the may I have some more scene from Oliver, which by the way is a
Yep.
really overrated musical. Yeah, I'm going there. But the these two things don't go together. If it was really that booming, you should be swimming in it. And there are and it's not like comic books as a medium as a whole is dead or something like that. Just that the people who are involved with the big two are not.
Yeah, indie comics are doing pretty well.
Mm-hmm. There's no shortage of people making projects at a very high quality. And it's for this reason that if you're going to say that that is doing well and if you're making that much of a blatant claim, it should be just as easy to um to get evidence for it. Positive claims require positive evidence, and or, and extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence.
And that which can be claimed without evidence can be dismissed without evidence.
Yep. And unfortunately, we are not seeing that. And it doesn't. And some might ask, why did I use Alan Scott Green Lantern and and Kamala Khan on the cover for this? Well, it's because the two of them are endemic of the problem in different ways. In the case of Kamala Khan, it's been the insistence of trying to push that character repeatedly, and it hasn't stuck. Trying to push that character and it hasn't stuck. Trying to push Miles Morales and it barely sticks. Pushing characters that are not popular and and trying to gaslight the audience into supporting them for very shallow reasons.
Basically, they didn't go over.
Mm-hmm. Or if you prefer, they post-Shield Roman Reigns did.
Oh, jeez.
I'm right.
I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just remembering that travesty.
Mm-hmm. Or if I have
To be fair, at least that was just fucking hilarious for how long that went on. I kind of love the post-Shield Roman Reigns bit just because of that.
I would like to point out that Fizchozo Corner says Miles Morales now has X-ray vision for some reason.
Why not? At this point, who cares?
Which is because of, and actually that brings up a fair point. A lot of the characters that we're told we're supposed to like are people really like to bring up how powerful they are. Like when there was all that push for Captain Marvel, it's like she's the most powerful Avenger. It's like that's not why we gravitate to characters, dumbass. I know
it's also not even true.
Even if it was true, that's still not why a given character is liked.
Oh, of course. I'm not saying that that's a reason someone should be liked. I'm just saying not only is it not a reason that we like people, but it's not even true.
Mm-hmm. In the case of Kamala Khan, we're supposed to like her because Muslim hero. There have been there's been plenty of that for the longest time. That's not exactly unique. That and the whole thing of not first she was an Inhuman, now she's a mutant, and except for the Marvel Knights run, nobody gives a shit about the Inhumans.
I have to ask, if she's such a good Muslim, where's her I can't finish that sentence. No, I can't. Where's her head covering?
The burqa?
Where's not necessarily a burqa.
There was a character in X-Men called I think it was Dust. Who actually did have that attire.
Yeah. She's if Kamala Khan is supposed to be a good Muslim hero, she's either a good hero and not a very good Muslim, or a good Muslim and not a very good hero. But that's not even the I think the big thing here is that we're supposed to like her because I hate to say it this way because this is usually the thing that we see that people try to use to justify it, but personal agenda of representation. If you write a good character, people will like that character because they're written well. And all the other things about them that are, what I have no words, Monk. I can't word today. No, all the other things about that character that are things they are unable to control about themselves or are culturally important to them will naturally just be accepted if the character is written well. But if all you're doing is signposting their various cultural and ethnic demographics and nothing else, you're making a one-dimensional character who is entirely represented by immutable qualities, and that's not good.
Mm-hmm.
It's not good writing.
And I can pretty much guarantee a lot of those same people who are just like, are basically just going on about just her heritage as reason for her character, are a lot of the same people that were getting on the case of Tekken for no black people, despite,
Oh yeah,
Raven.
that was hilarious.
Harada 10-hit comboed every fucking one of them. Let's be honest here.
I don't even think he was going out of his way to be a dick either.
No, he
He
wasn't.
seemed, for some of the things I've seen him say in the past, very level and calm about the whole thing.
Fizz, I think you're misinterpreting.
That is not what I was saying. I said she's either a good Muslim but a bad hero, or a bad Muslim but a good hero, because she's not got any good qualities to her that justifies the representation being present. They needed to write a good character. Yeah, they needed to write a good person there, regardless of her identities, before they started, also touting her identities.
And
plus it was a joke about burgers.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's also why I brought up Dust. And even though she's been just as much of a victim of the stupidity of recent X-Men, when she was introduced, and oddly enough, her two creators are Grant Morrison and Ethan Van Sciver.
I wonder what could make her such a compelling character with those people behind her. I don't know. Maybe the fact that they both know actually how to write characters.
Yeah. And just so the rest of you have a idea of her appearance, I'm going to share this image in GeekWatch for you guys. Let me.
It's not even the. Yeah, that's also a really nice. That's just like a really cool costume in general.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's clear that they're going to say that she's being devout by showing that with her clothing, instead of just writing, "Oh, I'm very devout. Look at me, I'm devout." See, that's another thing. Forced, ham-fisted storytelling. Just by seeing the picture alone, you can tell she's determined and focused, especially with the way that she's looking.
Mm-hmm.
That she's devout in her beliefs, with the way that her actual costume, her hero kit looks. And then, of course, because, well, she's got the signifying X badge for being an X-Men, you know what type of superhero from the Marvelverse she is. She's a mutant.
Yeah. And
plus her name is Dust. I'm guessing she has sand powers.
Yeah. I've seen some say that she's a ripoff of Sandman. It's not exactly the same in the finer details, but that's getting ahead of myself.
But I also imagine that Dust is written well, that she is a compelling character, and that these things that you can glean from the visual representation of her are not what is most noticeable about her as a character, rather than as just the art.
Yeah. And early on, her story was just after she was rescued by Wolverine and Phantom X, having to adjust to her new life, because she if you look up just her summary in the wiki, she did not have a easy time of it.
Mm.
I will put it like that. But given the characters mentioned, this is as good a time as any to bring up a concept that I've referred to as brain drain. Now, the original concept of brain drain in whenever it was something that came out of political theory. You know, where smarter people were going to other countries for better pay. In this particular concept, it's the fact that because of the culture, the actual talented people get run out because the cabs in that place, the catty ass bitches,
Hmm.
insist on running anybody out that might make them look bad or look like or be more popular than them. The head that rises above the crowd is getting cut off. And when you have that kind of toxicity, anybody with some sense is like, fuck you, I'm going to work somewhere else. I think that's also why a lot of people within the big two absolutely despise the rising indies, because they don't have the skill to actually go out on their own. Or in some cases, the gumption to take a chance on themselves. Oh,
Honestly, like on a whole, that's kind of how I look at a lot of this stuff with these, like the decline of your big two is we have a lot of indies coming up. If you have a bit of gumption, you want some good Western comics, you can find them now. A little
that's
bit of
the
work.
you know it's always funny that the that the big thing that any Marxist tries to get rid of is competition at the first opportunity. You know, the self-defeating process of seizing the means of opportunity that you and I have talked about at length, Zan.
Yeah.
Because anytime some Marxist attempts to do that, well, all the people who are actually skilled fuck off at the first opportunity, or they get dealt with in the Soviet method.
Anyone who is skilled enough will see the oncoming storm and get the fuck out of Dodge.
Mm-hmm.
The few who are either skilled enough but have faith in the system or not quite skilled enough will then get caught up, ringed for everything that they're worth, and then put against the wall.
And the people that remain are unskilled but are zealots.
Yep. This is why communism is not a political ideology. It's a fucking cult.
Mm-hmm. And well, look at what happens with cults, where any sort of dissent, even dissent for the cult's own good, is to be excised and eradicated.
Mm-hmm.
And when that happens, you have less and less people who are anything more than sycophants or sheep, and it goes into a downward spiral. We've seen that we've just look at all the numerous documentaries on cults all over the net for plenty of examples of that.
Yep.
And of course if you want the darkest take, you can always look at what happened with the Jonestown massacre.
Let's not.
Let's
not.
Let's not. I don't even. The audio for that is on the internet, and I still tell people don't listen to that.
Yeah, you told me that about 20 years too late, Monk.
If I had known you 20 years ago, I would have said it then.
Yeah.
And you probably still would have done it.
Yeah, also true.
But at least I could say I tried.
This is true.
But a, like a lot of the people who could make a good comic are not going to be given the space to do that in the big two because of the adherence to a cult, as you mentioned before. There's also the fact that if they do that, the low skilled people who are zealots get threatened and feel that if this person gets enough attention that they might have more pull than what they do.
Yeah,
So they'll try and get rid of it at the first opportunity.
they'll try to undermine everybody. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. You know, this is where you get the cabs. This is where you get the Whisper network, which the a lot of the people within that field try to act like the Whisper network doesn't exist, but everybody knows it does. That particular thing's been blown up. The dam of legitimacy is not there.
But they'll still not know what you're talking about, Monk. They will still insist they know nothing of what you speak.
Well, much like when a soldier says that the E4 Mafia doesn't exist.
Monk, they don't exist. Nobody says they exist. E4 Mafia doesn't exist. That's not a real thing.
There are way too many stories that have been relayed to me about the specialist.
Yeah.
Especially more recently when not to get too far off on a tangent, but I want to get this out of my system. Somebody had put up a series of videos of if veterans were in horror movies, and it has it has them summoning demons, slashes, and the like just for target practice.
Yeah, that sounds about right. To be honest,
they're saying, oh no, the spooky clown is here. I totally don't have a shotgun.
Oh no, help! Spooky horror clown here. I think I need to go home and get my Mossberg. And for those of you who don't know, Mossberg is a type of shotgun. Actually, probably the most popular home defense pump-action shotgun in the U.S. Because it's affordable and reliable.
Meanwhile, if you listen in the distance, you hear a pissing contest between Mossberg stands and Remington stands.
No, the only reason you have that pissing contest is because enough Remington shotguns that are old are still around that you can slam fire them, Monk, okay? That's the only reason that pissing contest exists, is because those people with the old Remingtons are like, yep, well, you can't slam fire.
I've always had questions regarding whether or not slam fire is overrated.
I mean, with a shotgun using buckshot and no choke, it puts a lot of lead downrange real quick.
Mm-hmm.
That's besides the point and a little bit off track here, Monk.
But getting back on the rails, I would be remiss if I didn't bring up the Alan Scott comic that Tim Sheridan was doing. And this was a masterclass in how not to promote your comic.
Oh boy.
Because the video that he put up on Twitter was like buy the comic to support a gay comic creator and own the chuds. That's not entirely what he said, but that's the paraphrased gist of it.
Mm-hmm.
And then he got really mad when people were calling him out, going, "What the fuck are you doing? Like, you tell me about why I should buy the damn comic instead of saying we should buy it to own Comicsgate or some shit."
Yeah. Sell me the comic, don't sell me your politics.
Mm-hmm. And as far as and I did have the first issue sent to me, and I'm like, who the fuck is this for? like it's not a superhero comic because it's trying way too hard to be slice of life. Um, it's it's too superhero for a slice of life comic, and that's and that the amount of ability for that to work isn't really going to be there. Um,
Too much of one, not enough of the other.
hmm Like, who is the? I was asking, who is this for aside from the writer? And then when the comic didn't sell, he decided to blame all the istophobes. Like, motherfucker, you created that problem.
Oh, it's not that he blamed the istophobes. It's that he blamed everybody else and called them all istophobes.
It's still a problem he created.
Absolutely. I just think we needed to be specific about what the problem actually was.
Mm-hmm. And let's be honest, within that culture, there's an almost romanticization or even obsession with putting the blame on with finding new and interesting ways to put the blame on anyone but yourself.
Yeah. Because God forbid they take any sort of responsibility for anything, right?
Mm-hmm. It's much more easy to just say the devil made me do it.
Mm-hmm. Also, I can hear them screaming in the distance since I said don't sell me your politics, but it's all political. Motherfuckers, I'm going to say it right now, and I know that we've probably had to say it a million times before. There is a difference between a work of fiction having a political theme or discussing politics in the fictional world or anything of that nature and inserting personal agendas and politics into your works.
Mm-hmm.
Massive difference.
And this is where we get to one of the things that really caused a shitstorm over the last few weeks. I forget the guy's name, but a certain comic book shop owner who's been owning his shop, who's been running his shop for decades. He's been running it for longer than we've been alive. Had ranted about the reason why these books aren't selling is the characters they're trying to push. Nobody is that the current crop of writers are writing self-inserts. Nobody cares, and he said nobody cares about what you would have done if you were in Captain America's shoes. Write Captain America, get paid for it, and shut the fuck up. And what was very telling with the response is that a lot of people focused on his appearance, which is a telltale sign that people have that they can't counter what he actually said.
Mm-hmm.
You know, a lot of people comparing him to the comic book guy in the Simpsons, or commenting on his appearance or other stereotype comic book nerd remarks in the most smug and condescending way possible, may I add. And what that whenever somebody that is the picture of a ad hominem logical fallacy.
Mm-hmm.
You know, attacking the person instead of attacking the argument. It's a good way to show that you can't tackle their argument. And then this escalated even further because Mark Miller not only backed him up but had him on his podcast. And I think the reason they were mad at Mark Miller so much is they can't do anything to him. What are they gonna do? Try and cancel him and say that and have it that he can't work at Marvel or DC. He's working with Netflix. He just moves all of his comic properties over to Dark Horse. Like if Dark Horse suddenly says, "Oh, we don't want to work with you anymore," he'd be like, "Well, fuck you. I'll just go full independent." He is literally got fuck you money.
Yep.
And it's the fact that they can't control him that ends up angering them, because You know how it is with these sort of people. Anything that they can't control is public enemy number one.
Mm-hmm.
Can't control or can't use as a vehicle for themselves.
Exactly.
And hold on a sec. Mace might want Mace sounds. It sounds like he wants to come in.
Oh.
So I'm telling him I'm telling him to jump in if he wants to come in, or if he's fucking teasing me.
Sounds like somebody jumped in.
Invading
hey,
Australia.
Mace. Yeah, I got your I got your message. I didn't even know if you were awake at this hour.
I'm always awake at. I'm always awake. It's only 20 to 3 in the afternoon, so of course I'm awake. I just happened to be browsing the interwebs and came across GeekWatch, and I saw the topic of discussion tonight, and I'm like, okay, this will be interesting.
Yeah, we had just finished talking about how people were really butthurt that Mark Miller had that guy on who called everybody out. The whole stop trying to write your own Mary Sue shit with characters, and maybe people will actually buy your damn books.
Yep, the bravest comic book shop owner that I have ever seen.
And in the process of that, we now have the term cancel pigs going around, which which manages to piss off all the right people because they can't for the longest time they could have the illusion of lording over people because I work for Marvel, I work for DC, you're just some nobody running a blog.
Yes, but for every nobody running a blog, they've got a few hundred or a few thousand of the actual consumers listening to that nothing blog, and they're the ones that like to spend with their wallet, like I do.
Because I've talked in the past on my annoyance when people use the phrase "except for the occasional indie." I don't think we're at the point where I think we're past the point where you can say it's occasional.
No, indies are huge. Like there's the consistent degradation in quality of the big two has just inspired the indies to write better and better because they see what happens when you don't write better.
Yeah, there are multiple indies out there that are even just crowdsourcing. I believe the best example would be his name escapes me at the moment, but he writes the Ripperverse.
Eric July.
July.
Who people seem to have a massive hate boner for. I don't fully understand. Some of them are just parroting what Dick Masterson and his crew have been saying, and that's one case of really falling off. The fact that people thought that whole School of Ministry thing was actually going to stick is pathetic.
Yeah, but with that whole thing, like he self-funded his first book, which I think was over the tune of $2 million for just the first issue. And since then, he has gone on to turn what was just a simple, hey, I'm going to write something better than you, into a pretty good business for himself. He's got a few more writers on board. I know the horror directors, the Soska sisters, they've signed on to do one of his books from a writing standpoint after Marvel won't let them back on after their last book that they did, which was a Black Widow book.
I didn't read that book, but but if that's how things went down, I get the feeling that it's what we've been talking about, that the cabs got threatened that a couple of women were actually doing a better job than they were.
Yeah, the Black Widow book that they wrote called No Restraints Play was basically Black Widow was going after a bunch of not sexual assaultists, basically people in the sex slave trade. and outright killing them.
Wasn't there a Punisher Max story that was in that same vein, the Slaver arc?
Similar vibe. Yeah, there was something in a similar vein.
Mm-hmm.
But this was done in, like, my wife actually knows the Soska sisters.
Mm-hmm.
And I've actually communicated with them quite a few times personally. And they are very straightforward girls. Like, they hold nothing back. They wrote this Marvel book specifically out there to convey their own message about, the sex slave trade and stuff like that. And Marvel really pushed back against it. Like, they had to fight just to get the story across. And once it came out, they said, yeah, that's it. We're not going to do anything else with you. They are now persona non gratis at Marvel. Even though they wrote probably one of the best Black Widow books that has been written. And that's not a non-bias. That's after reading a lot of Black Widow stuff that's come afterwards. It's just horrible.
Mm-hmm.
If that's the case, what the hell would Marvel have any reason to tell them not to do it? Like, if it sold so well because it was really well written,
it was the subject. It was the subject matter. They didn't want to. They didn't want to associate Black Widow with such subject matter because of the connection with, like, the character being in the Marvel Cinematic Universe and everything else.
I get that, but Black Widow as a character is a spy. Spies have to.
A spy and an assassin.
Exactly. She's already done.
They've been dropping the assassin part of the character for many years, unfortunately. Like, just going more on the spy angle, just so that they can keep this Marvel Cinematic Universe going.
Yeah, and of course, nowadays, let's see how a few years ago, Mace, we had talked about the oddity that despite the popularity of the MCU, it wasn't converting into new readers, and we talked about the reasons why. And the only reason I didn't bring you on for that is that I didn't know you at the time. We did that in the very early days of GeekWatch.
I'd actually like to put just an aside here that's actually a very pertinent point. The Punisher exists in the Marvel Universe.
Indirectly, he's more of the forgotten era of, like, the early mid-2000s, like before the Marvel Cinematic Universe became a big thing. So a lot of the movies that existed back then, they don't consider a part of that universe.
But what about the TV series that came out in 2017? The one that people make they make funny memes out of it with the wait no part, which was actually probably one of the most traumatic parts of that series, where he has the dreams about the guys busting into his house, zip tying him to his chair, and killing his whole family in front of him. I mean,
well, you know who was a big proponent when it came to the Netflix material.
Mm-hmm.
Perlmutter.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think it's a coincidence that when guys like Perlmutter and Avi Arad ended up getting their authorities reduced, or in the case of Arad, just getting run out. I don't know if or voluntold to leave, whichever you prefer. And handing it to the more approved people, the quality goes down. I've talked elsewhere about the whole strange case of Lasseter when it came to Pixar, and there hasn't been much in the way of good from that studio after he was left. That's the whole brain drain concept. The talented people seek greener pastures and are able to still draw in because they have the actual talent.
I think with the line of comments and questions that Fizz Chozo Corner is making, the fact that Black Widow was a villain originally, or also asks what about Ghost Rider. It seems like Marvel just wants to sand off the rough edges of the Marvel universes in general. They're not willing to take risks anymore.
I'd say a good amount of that is due to that whole culture thing, because if anybody admits that that there's a problem and we need to start taking risks to fix it, they get bullied out.
And in the terms of Ghost Rider, I think a lot of it comes down to how he's been handled in the past. The two Nick Cage movies do not really lend themselves well to any type of audience. And the Ghost Rider's appearance in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., I think it was season 4, was very mishandled. And it was the newest incantation of him. It wasn't the classic.
It was Robbie Reyes, not Johnny Blaze. And
and I think that's a big part of the problem with the comic books as well, has been the switch and change of characters using the title of the character.
Yeah, that whole thing of it's just a title. Which I first saw that push during the whole FemThor thing, where they kept insisting for the longest time, this is Thor. This isn't somebody else taking the mantle. This is Thor. This is Thor. Only for it to eventually be revealed to just be Jane Foster, which you could have solved yourself a lot of headaches if you just said that right out of the gate.
Well, I'd also like to point out that at the times that other people have picked up Mjolnir, especially in the case of Beta Ray Bill, they were not called Thor.
Mm-hmm.
So why was Jane Foster called Thor?
Because they wanted to create the mystery and the storyline and just keep everything. It's like, hey, we're going to use the name of the character. They're still going to call her Thor, but no, that doesn't make. Really.
Yeah,
I think it was who was it? Jason Aaron that wrote that storyline and was just absolutely terrible at it.
And around the same time, there was an attempt to try and make Amadeus Cho, of all people, into the incredibly awesome Hulk.
Hey, let's at least be a little fair there, Monk. They did give him a different title, sort of.
No, but they tried to say, this is the new Hulk, and gaslit people into that because they wanted to make headlines about Asian Hulk.
Yeah, but they've done that with Hulk multiple times. You know, you've had Red Hulk, you've had She-Hulk, you've had the Red She-Hulk, you've had Abomination, you've had...
My favorite thing about
so many.
My favorite thing about She-Hulk is people misinterpreting the fact that it's confidence that powers her to be sexual appetite that powers her. That was always the funniest meme to see on forums back in the day.
Yeah, I think, and I do remember some years back, David S. Goyer, who I'm going to be honest, I find to be a bit of a hack. Made that infamous claim that She-Hulk looks like a porn star, and I'm like, give me your internet history right now. Putting aside the fact that Goyer has always been a second liner in anything that he's worked on, whether it be Blade, whether it be Batman Begins, or even whether it be Dark City, he's always been the second guy on the staff. Meaning, and whenever he's tried to do anything on his own, it's stuff like Justice League Dark, which I didn't really care for. You know, that's part of why I call him a hack. It seems like unless he's doing his attempt at grimdark shit, he has no idea what he's doing, or he needs somebody else to have him on a leash. You know, kind of like Vince Russo.
To be honest, even trying to put a lot of these writers on a leash has never worked. Especially when you take a look at editorial and management. Some of them have made the absolutely horrible decisions. You know, Quesada, One More Day. Do I need to really bring that up again?
Let me raise you one with a bigger offender if we're talking about editors who are a problem. Dan DiDio.
Yep.
I love that I am happy that our entire group has insane problems with One More Day.
I have been a Spider-Man fan my entire life. I have an almost complete Amazing Spider-Man collection in single issues. And reading One More Day, that just... Oh my god. I had a chance to meet not Quesada, what was the other one? JMS. J. Michael Straczynski. He was also one of the writers on the book. And I handed him my copy and I said, "Can you apologize for this?" And he actually did. He actually wrote on the cover, "I apologize for writing this," and signed it.
That's nice.
I get the feeling. I get the feeling that Quesada would not do that.
It's because
No.
Quesada's got his head up his ass.
Especially with that idea that he had that Spider-Man should be there. Between him and DiDio, there seemed to be this almost hatred of the idea of superheroes getting hitched.
He was one of those guys who didn't believe that Spider-Man or any other character should belong to an older audience. He believed that comic books were strictly a teenage through to early 20s media. And he went about trying to destroy as much of it as possible.
Early 20s is where a lot of people get married.
Yeah, exactly. And Spider-Man was one of two characters, or one of two titles, that evolved with the times. You know, as the readers of Spider-Man grew up, so did the character. He got married, he had children, he had moved on from the problems of high school and college and had to deal with actual adult problems. Some of probably the best storylines were done during that era. Same things with the Fantastic Four. Again, that's another book where you have a married couple at the center. And for some reason, writers just seem to want to try and reboot these characters back to the early days of their run. And I don't see why that has to be.
The argument that's often used is it's hard for new readers to get in when there's all that backstory.
Look up a Wikipedia page.
Yeah, nowadays with Wikipedia pages, that's not an excuse. The other thing is the fact that why is it then that people are able to so easily get into, say, Doctor Who? Recent matters notwithstanding, that's beside the point. You have that particular character that has even more insane amounts of backstory, and trying to set up a continuity with that character leads to everyone just throwing up their hands because fucking time travel. But
well, the difference between Doctor Who and something like, say, Spider-Man is that Doctor Who has multiple jump-on points. You can either jump on at the start of the 2005 series, or you can jump on with each new Doctor once every 3 years. With Spider-Man, it's a lot harder to jump in because the only real reset point that they had at any point was actually One More Day. The One More Day, and then after issue 700, where they went Superior Spider-Man Volume 1, then you had a jump-on point from there. And they seem to want to do a jump-on point every 50 to 60 issues.
I'm in favor of not having to research shit before jumping in, especially for something that long running. But if you have to research to follow what's going on, that's a problem with what you're writing at a certain point.
I'd like to say that, but how many people have made whole YouTube careers just going through lore and backstory of different characters, or just look at say Vati making all those background videos on these Souls games.
Yeah, see, those are fascinating and interesting. You don't need that to jump into Souls, any of the Souls games.
I'd like to.
It's fun and great that they exist.
Yeah. There's a couple more things here from Fizz Chozo Corner. First, he asks, or they ask, why didn't they just introduce more solo teen heroes instead of rebooting Spider-Man? I actually,
They have,
well,
and they suck.
that's also true. But do you know? This is a rumor I heard. I don't know if this was actually somebody quoting like Quesada or somebody else, or if this was just someone pulling something out of their ass. But apparently, someone said one of the reasons One More Day exists is because Spider-Man happy means there's no more drama. I was like, what sort of stupid bullshit is that?
That was the same thing that who was the recent the guy who signed on for 100 issues of Batman? They did the big wedding thing. Mm-hmm. I keep thinking Tom Taylor, but he's a completely different subject. Like they went through to issue 50 of Batman, and the whole thing was meant to be this wedding the Catwoman, something people have been wanting for years. And the writer pulled a switch at the last minute that Batman turned around and said, I can't do it because of my oath to my family. And the reason being that was put forth in interviews was that exact same line. Batman being happy means no more Batman stories because his misery, his depression, his oath to his family is the reason why he exists. If he is happy for just one moment, then Batman no longer exists.
That's stupid. That is the most stupid reasoning. I fucking hate that. Mm-hmm. And then the other question Fizchoso Corner had.
Thank you. Yeah. Tom King, that was the guy who was writing it.
Asks, how is anyone even able to get into One Piece? So this was something I remarked on earlier in the episode about one of the big differences between Western comics and manga. Manga tend to be very self-contained within that title. Unlike someone like Spider-Man, who has stories that happen in other comic runs, such as the X-Men and all those others, One Piece is One Piece. All of the characters, all of the stories of One Piece are going to be in One Piece. Yeah. So how does someone get into One Piece? They start at Volume 1.
Episodes. Or the manga, whichever way.
Yeah. They start at Volume 1, and they just work forward from there. There's no studying necessary because everything's going to get fed to you as you read through the story, as it should be. Whereas if you only read Amazing Spider-Man volumes, you're going to miss out on context for some small things here and there, right, Mace?
Yeah, mostly with comic books, you can pick up specific arcs and just read the arc. Whereas manga, and thank God you brought up One Piece, because my wife wants to get into that, and I'm sitting there going, hell no. Because the other reason why I'm saying so is because there's only two avenues available. Either you read the manga from the start, and that's over 100, nearly 110 volumes of manga that she's have to get a hold of and read, or she watches the anime, which is over 1,000 episodes. And even if you take out all the filler, that's still probably about 900 odd episodes. That's a lot of stuff to go through.
Yeah, it is.
I will say thank God for the guys behind One Piece, who have actually gone through and condensed all the storylines. But even then, that is still a lot to go through.
I understand that, but the point I'm getting at here, Mace, is that with manga, you don't have to look at storylines outside of that One Piece manga. That manga gives you everything about One Piece that's necessary. Whereas there are some story arcs that Spider-Man will go through that tread in other comic lines. Like when he shows up alongside, like I said the X-Men, because that's the most relevant examples I can usually think of is Spider-Man helping out the X-Men.
Oh, I can give you a current one. Right now they're running a story called Gangland War, which is doesn't just involve the Spider-Man books. It involves Miles Morales, Luke Cage, Iron Fist, and Daredevil, I believe.
Okay, and so
all at the moment, so you got to get all those separate lines in order to understand the entire storyline.
Or otherwise, you have to research through wikis. Whereas you wouldn't have to do any of that just to understand the One Piece story because it's all in One Piece's manga or One Piece's anime. Now, I know One Piece has a specific example as rather long and rather involved. We could use smaller examples such as Bleach, because that is a complete manga at this point. And Tight Kubo still owes me money. Tite Kubo, you owe me money. I predicted in years in advance that there would be a Shinigami visored Quincy. I said it as a joke on a forum in 2008, but it was my character. Give me my money, god damn it.
See, my best example of that would be the Dragon Ball.
Yeah.
Because you can either watch just Dragon Ball, or you can watch through Dragon Ball Z, Super, GT. The thing with the original Dragon Ball is you've got two options available. You've got the TV series, or you've got the series of movies, which are just retelling of the series, done just slightly different. With Dragon Ball Z, you can either watch the full thing, or you can watch Kai, which is a shortened, abridged version, or you can watch Dragon Ball Abridged, which is, again, not quite a straightforward retelling, but it's probably one of the shorter versions, but it gets you all the main details of what you're looking for. So, like, Japanese media, I will say, has a better idea of what they're doing when it comes to coherent single-line storylines than what American media will ever have.
And something else to note is earlier before you came on, we had talked about certain characters that were getting overpushed. I even compared it to post-Shield Roman Reigns in terms of just begging, like this character, isn't this character so cool? And yeah, there's plenty of examples in Marvel, like say Kamala Khan or Carol Danvers, which is always amusing because she was a fairly popular character up until that point, as Miss Marvel.
I will say with the Miss Marvel thing, yes, Carol Danvers was a popular character. That's more the actress behind the character in the movies opening her mouth the wrong way than anything else.
But even with that, bumping Carol Danvers to Captain Marvel, they've rebooted that comic so many damn times because they tried to turn her into their answer to Wonder Woman. And then ended up making a Wonder Woman knockoff with Power Princess, but that's another story.
Plus, there's also the whole idea behind at least the big two, that if you don't reboot every now and again, you need that speculator market of getting a new issue 1 out there to try and get the speculator market booming so more people will read from an issue 1.
Yeah,
Again, management and marketing has a lot of problems in the comic book industry than just what's going on in the actual book itself.
Mm-hmm.
So long as we're talking about reboots, and we have talked about this in detail on a previous GeekWatch, I really think the only reboot DC ever needed was the very first Crisis on Infinite Earths. Every other Crisis...
Not one every 12 months?
not one every not one every 12 months. No, not one every 12 months. Not 7 different crises. Not Flashpoint. They didn't really need any of that.
And so,
yeah, they rely very heavily on the same gimmicks over and over again. Like even like you had 52, then you had New 52, brand new 52. Like my joke about once every 12 months isn't a joke. They actually do a reboot. They rebrand the books every 12 months under a new version of something 52.
Do you know
because 52 itself was such a massive success. But the thing is, with 52, the reason that worked was because of proper planning, because it was a 2-step thing. One, you had every major line jump ahead 1 year in time, and 52 was meant to fill in the gap of what happened in that. The reason why it was called that was because one issue was meant to be 1 week of time.
Yep, 52 weeks.
And then apparently Dan DiDio hated it, though we don't know why. He just absolutely despised it and thought that Countdown to Final Crisis, or just Countdown, was going to be the proper 52, and that was so bad that it's lived rent-free in people's heads for years, and the actual Final Crisis completely ignored it. Probably out
think
of embarrassment, though Final Crisis itself was a strange beast.
I think one of my favorite things that came about from the whole New 52 debacle is Superman finally got some new powers. The supernova was a very interesting tool to try and turn Clark mortal for a day. And it could have been used really well if it hadn't been used really poorly.
And
I'd also like to point out that the New 52 version of Clark is probably the strongest version of Superman we've seen since Silver Age.
But if I wanted
True.
to use an example of a character that was ridiculously overpushed, I have to bring up the Batman Who Laughs.
I can go you one better from the New 52. Harley Quinn.
Yeah, for the last few years, DC has tried really, really hard to turn Harley Quinn into their version of Deadpool.
True.
Their anti-villain that is also semi-fourth wall breaking, yes.
However, I would like to say, though, even though like the character has been overpushed, they've tried morphing her into Deadpool. She is probably, at least the New 52 run, like I think it's like Volume 2 or Volume 3, as they call it, was probably one of the more better written versions of Harley Quinn, and that's where we've got a lot of our modern day things, like her relationship with Poison Ivy and stuff like that added in. And it was done subtly. It was a subtle thing that was naturally progressed and did not become the whole thing of the character. Unlike the TV show, which seems to really push the Harley Quinn's a lesbian. No, you don't make it the whole personality, please.
I would like to point out that Harley Quinn and Poison Ivy were a thing all the way back in Adventures in the Adventures of Batman.
New Adventures. I remember that.
All the way back in the 90s. It wasn't as blatant as, oh yeah, they actually are lovers, because you couldn't really get away with that in the 90s in a kids cartoon. But it was always implied that the reason that it was always very heavily implied because Harley was always so much happier when hanging out with Poison Ivy than with Mr. J.
Yeah,
also,
and
I
again,
have to
it's the subtlety.
Exactly. I also have to point out to anyone young enough and stupid enough to have these ideas watching, no, the relationship that Harley Quinn and the Joker have is not something to aspire to. That is a codependent, abusive relationship. Get your heads out of your asses and stop idolizing it.
Yes, thank you for saying that. Even though I'm probably of the mindset that if you're going to go for something along those lines, that's a lot more sort of wholesome but spicy. Morticia and Gomez.
Okay, so Morticia and Gomez don't abuse each other.
Yeah, it's a mutual consent thing.
It's a mutual love and respect, and it's a gothic one. Remember that the Addams Family that most people love would have to be Angelica Houston and Raul Julia. You know, from the movies.
Yeah,
that's probably the most popular rendition of them these days, and that. They were in love with death, not as in they were suicidal, but that they saw the beauty in death. They were truly dark gothics. And because the original black and white Addams Family, let's be honest, is actually pretty quirky. It's even in the song. Mm-hmm. Whereas the 90s movies were a take where they took that quirkiness and just dialed it up to gothic levels of quirkiness. And so yes, that is definitely a relationship to aspire to for anyone and everyone. But now we're off the rails and should probably return to comics.
The big reason I bring up the Batman Who Laughs is how ridiculous they were, putting aside the fact that he's basically a poor man's version of Judge Death. there's the fact that he's the equivalent of a OC. The whole what if Batman turned evil and killed everyone, and so much of his everything is just on shock value.
Well, I mean,
Like, I'm fine with that in concept. Have your fun little shock value, evil, crazy Batman. But just leave it at that.
calling him the Batman that laughs is so very clearly trying to imply that if the Batman becomes a villain, he's just a better Joker, or a Joker that's better at his job. It's like, no. The Joker's always tried to imply that the Joker is just Batman in a mirror darkly, as a way of fucking with Batman, not as anything serious. It's all an attempt by the Joker to fuck with Batman's head, because that's Joker's one true calling, to fuck with Batman. They've never been mirrors of each other in that respect. And the Batman Who Laughs just makes me go, okay, so you basically just wanted to put Joker in the Batman costume. That's it. The name even implies that. It's bullshit and stupid.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but just to backtrack a little bit more, I know we've been off the rails and we're swung around and everything else. I swear this is going to look worse than probably some of the Scalextric Hot Wheels sets that we used to play with as kids. But
welcome to GeekWatch. Chaos is mandatory.
But
I am chaos incarnate.
To bring it back around to like the political plays in comic books, and since you're bringing up sort of more modern Batman stories, the fact that you have a look at two of the most richest characters who are meant to be the most richest characters in comic books, Bruce Wayne and Tony Stark, both have now had arcs where they have lost their fortunes and are basically reduced to normal people having to try and do their thing under a very tight budget. Batman has lost his fortune, he's lost his house, like the mansion, the Batcave, everything, gone. He now works out of a little brownstone that he had under a sub-company or something that he was able to get away with. And he has neighbors and is part of a community and everything else. Tony Stark lost all his money or gave it all to Pepper or whatever he did this time. It's about the fourth time he's had to do that. But he's now, just a normal guy who happens to have a couple of Iron Man suits. Like, the whole idea of we need to get rid of rich people, or in this specific case, let's call it what it is, rich white guys, and humble them by taking away their money.
I'm going to actually
step further.
Okay.
There is a certain contradiction of people wanting to humble the exceptional to make them quote unquote realistic.
Oh, Harrison Bergeron. Got it.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking Harrison Bergeron now. Got it. I would actually like to contrast this with a Toku. Kamen Rider 01 has an entire arc where he loses the fortune and everything and still goes to be an amazing hero. But they did it because it was a conflict between two different companies for competing Kamen Riders. And yes, Guy is still my shoeshine boy. Zodari Enterprises absorbed Zaya very quickly. But the whole thing is that they humbled the main character, Haruto, not because he was rich, but because they wanted to see what he would do when going back to roots. Because Haruto started the show humble. He was just a kind of a second-rate comedian. And then kind of tripped his way into being rich because he was supposed to be the Kamen Rider. And then was broken down again when another Kamen Rider from another corporation was like, "No, I'm going to take over your company now because I want your secrets."
That's fair enough, and that's a great sort of lost and regained story arc.
Yeah, it was great.
But the whole idea with characters like Tony Stark and Bruce Wayne is the fact that they were normal guys who were just had great intelligence, great business savvy, and sure, they came from money, And that's what enabled them to build the technology that puts them on par with these godly superhero people. You take away that money, they shouldn't be able to do what they're still doing.
So they say that necessity is the mother of invention. And if these humbling Batman/Iron Man arcs were written properly and well, this would be, again, a really good story of, shit, chips are down, resources are low, I can still do this. I just have to think of more efficient, better ways to do it.
And since you brought up 01, I'd be remiss if I didn't bring up how that whole thing ended when he lost his company. He's like, well, fine, I'll just make a new company, and he founded Heat Manufacturing.
Yep.
You know, when Heat Intelligence was taken from him, he's like, all right, I will start a new company. Starting it out of a glorified warehouse, which, given Toku, is a little bit apropos, but
yeah, he started at the bottom and he made a new company to try and still help these androids, the Humagear, and because Zaya was an ass. There's a whole bunch there, but basically he started at the bottom, made his own company so that he could still do stuff, especially for the Humagear, which he also had as much faith in as he did humans. Until other things happened. But 01 story is huge. We're not going to get into that.
Yeah.
In the end,
yeah. Sorry. Can't relate to 01. I haven't watched anything since Ghost.
Yeah.
Why would you stop at Ghost? You should have ignored the fact that Ghost was bad and kept going.
I keep meaning to get back into it. I still collect them. I still collect the episodes, but yeah, I don't know. I watched like 2 episodes of Ghost and went, yeah, I'm out for a while.
Yeah, no. We're eventually going to have a reconstruction on Ghost. Monk's already said so, but
yeah.
But yeah, I don't blame you on being like, I don't want to watch anymore after some Ghost. I watched Ghost all the way to the end. I felt very drained afterwards, but I did it. But in the end,
I did, however, catch the ending of what was the one where they used the books.
That was
Saber.
Saber. Yeah, I saw that and I went, "What the hell?" I think I made the right choice to still not watch.
No, Saber's good. The only problem they have is the jingles are too long because it's reading an excerpt from the books they open. But Saber's pretty good.
Yeah.
But back on comics, if they had done the same thing 01 had done and made it so that, you know, Bruce Wayne and Tony Stark, okay, most of their shit has been pulled out from under them. They've got very few resources, but they've still got their intelligence, which is the defining point of the characters, that they're smart. The defining point is not that, oh, they're strong and buff and superpowered, because they're not. That's kind of the point. They're normal, they're badass normies, as the trope goes. But the only reason they're that badass is because they're smart. They invented things that gave them their kit. And so just because they're down and out and don't have the money or fabrication resources available that they normally would have doesn't preclude their intelligence. And so if it was written well, they'd still find a way to do what they do with more efficiency and less resources, like I said.
Yeah. And to be honest, there are better ways to humble such characters. And even it can even be such as a small moment. Like, I know that there's the meme out there of Bruce Wayne doesn't know how to eat a hamburger. Because they went to a hamburger place, like a Burger King or something like that. And Bruce eats a hamburger with a knife and fork, and everybody just looks at him like he's crazy. That's a small humbling moment.
That is a small humbling moment. I also feel that's kind of... But I feel like that's more an extension of what they're doing, trying to humble the guy by pulling out his richness and then implying that he doesn't know how normal life works. There's absolutely no way Bruce Wayne does not know how a burger is normally eaten.
The depends on the writer, I suppose. Or if you want to go another route, Tony Stark, Demon in a Bottle.
Okay, yeah, I get that one. But the reason I say Bruce Wayne would absolutely know how to eat a burger, how many times does he go undercover as a fucking hobo?
Maybe he's
How many
never
times
had a burger as a hobo.
We don't
Have you
know
ever
that.
seen him eat while he's undercover?
Okay.
He would probably do, and he would probably pursue that because well, anything to maintain the illusion of him not being who he is.
Yeah. Bruce Wayne goes undercover as people of much lower wealth than himself a lot. He'd know how to eat quote unquote low income food.
Mm-hmm.
But that's just a personal pet peeve on my end
But
there.
I'd say a lot of that is due to people people flanderizing due to certain memes or running jokes. How many times have we heard the whole Bruce's superpower is money, and then that gets taken completely unironically? Oh,
The internet has decided we can't just have quick, funny jokes anymore.
it is more, and there's a reason why I refer to flanderization, because it's taking one. We've Zan and I have talked about this. The whole taking one aspect and hyperfixating on that and exaggerating it to a ridiculous extent.
With flanderization, it's usually taking two or three most recognizable traits of a person and hyper exaggerating them until that is all the person is.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason it's called flanderization is after Ned Flanders.
That's the same way of Tony Stark being, hey, without the technology and the money, that he's just nothing.
Which unless
you look at the meme.
What
the
I find
meme
funny
about that is even better.
Is the first Avengers movie, you could say outright, called that shit out.
Yeah. Like, I was just saying that the meme for Tony Stark that came out of that movie was what happens when you take away the money, the suits, the technology, and everything else. And the reply is, I'm Sherlock Holmes, bitch.
Well, I think Monk's point about the very first Iron Man movie is actually pretty apropos there, about how he's there with... Tony Stark built this in the desert with a box of scraps!
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
You take away the money from Bruce Wayne or from Tony Stark or any similar character. But you somehow give them the same tool set that they had, the same mind that they had, the same drive. They're just going to build themselves right back up in any story that isn't trying to force them into that artificial position. Because yes, Bruce was born into money, but it's not like his entire fortune is just old money.
No, he's made a lot of himself.
Mm-hmm.
But then again, they just wrote of, hey, I can't remember how he lost his money. Like, it was just one day he just sort of had no money. That's the weirdest thing about it, which I drives me nuts, is when a character will wake up in a situation that is very unfamiliar even to the reader, and the writer gives no explanation or cause as to how it happened.
I look at that as some people taking J.J. Abrams' mystery box bullshit too far, or even just taking it unironically, or just taking it period. Look, in the early days of GeekWatch, we called J.J. Abrams the California roll, much like how the California roll is the most basic bitch sushi. And the mystery box thing that he's been notorious for, of setting up a mystery just to have people talking, even if you don't know if you're actually going to solve it, is definitely where you get that idea of, he lost his money because reasons. Now, mostly because if you're going to introduce that kind of change, you need to give a damn good reason. Otherwise, people are going to call you out on your bullshit. Case in point. And there's plenty of ways you could do it. You could have it that there was some hostile takeover. You could have it that that somebody decided to pull a lengthy scam. You could have it that I don't know. Raish found a way to screw him over. You know,
Well, according to the chat, somebody stole Bruce Wayne's money. No idea who, but yeah.
Okay.
So somebody stole his money, his company, everything else. I know Vandal Savage actually bought the Wayne Mansion and discovered the Batcave underneath.
Mm-hmm.
That's about as far as at least my memory on Batman stories go recently, because it's way too many to you got to keep up with Detective Comics, Batman, and then all sub stuff.
Well, it's because it's the only thing keeping them afloat.
That's true.
But I want to go back to that whole if characters like Batman or the like don't have the focus on the trauma, then they aren't that character anymore. I think that speaks a lot to the insecurities of the writer in that instance, or the fact that said person wants to be Peter Pan and never grow up. When earlier we brought up Spider-Man, and one of the appeals is the people getting into him growing up with him, and what that tells me is an inability to allow that. I mean,
it's the inability to write beyond your own experience. As the guy who ran the comic book shop said, a lot of these writers only put their own personal experiences into the character. They can't think or imagine situations beyond themselves.
You have no idea how much I cringe whenever a writer or an actor in an interview talks about how they wanted to tell their story. Every time I hear that, I cringe.
Yeah, I do the same thing because I read it every month in comic books.
And the thing is, nobody the only time that really matters is if you're writing a autobiography or some shit like that. When you're writing when you're writing Batman, people want you to write Bruce Wayne. There's definitely interpretations, but nobody wants to see Tom King if he was Batman. And Chris is saying, wait, a lot of people are more akin to Superboy Prime? Maybe.
I don't want to hear anything about any version of Superboy after what Tom Taylor did.
Yeah, the whole he's bi now, and making that his entire damn character.
Yep.
The only Superboy Prime I will remember with fondness is Superboy Prime 1 million.
Was he the one that punched the Earth to make it reset?
I think he was.
No.
No. The reason I remember Superboy Prime 1 million with fondness is only because it also introduced his Superman Prime 1 million, aka the God of Earth, with a fifth dimensional wife and the ability to be immune to magic because he's soaked in the sun for 15,000 years and established the Superman dynasty on Earth.
Ah, so the one that they use in Death Battle against Goku. Gotcha.
Yep.
I mean,
basically
the one that they used in Death Battle,
turning Superman into the God Emperor of Man.
Hey, Superman Prime 1 million is a true Chad. The man said, I'm going to give people Superman powers so they can continue to keep you safe, and I'm going to live in my fucking castle inside the sun with my fifth dimensional being wife. Mm-hmm. I love it for how fucking ridiculous it is, okay? I like absurdity. I am a fan of good absurdism. Come on now.
But
there's nothing wrong with that. But at the same time, it's like it could be a personal choice. But some of my best Superman stories is ones where there was a small run where all he did was walk around the country. He walked around the US.
Oh yeah, Grounded.
That was great.
Yeah, Grounded. That story was brilliant.
I remember some people really hating that story but the thing the
But
thing
but
about
also one of my favorite Superman stories is Red Sun as well. Communist Batman.
yeah.
Communist Batman and Communist Superman.
Oh, Red
It's
Sun.
just-
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah, Red Sun's pretty good too. I like a lot of different Superman stories. Superman 1,000,000 was one of those ones where the absurdity was so far you couldn't just you just couldn't help yourself from continuing to flip pages while laughing your ass off.
Mhm.
But that's the good thing about comic books, though, is that you can have that mix
I
of
know.
good, solid, great storytelling, like grounded, and then you could have like the over-the-top absurdity of Superman 1,000,000. Yet
Yes.
the days of seeing stuff like that, especially on the absurdity side, where we just go absolutely batshit insane with a character or a storyline, has become less and less with these new crop of writers. They keep trying to write the next great American comic story.
They want
But they-
to write something that'll get them a Hugo Award because they want to be
Yeah.
Alan Moore or some shit.
Yeah,
Who
they
would
want
want to
like
be
some
Alan
sort of,
Moore?
not even Alan Moore wants to be Alan Moore, so you know.
I mean, Alan Moore doesn't want to be Alan Moore so bad. He takes drugs and does sorcery to try and escape being Alan Moore. Okay? But I think this goes back to when we were also discussing primarily Marvel, and questions were asked about things like Black Widow and Ghost Rider. I think these new writers, they want to win that Hugo, but they don't want to take any risks doing it. That's why we don't get those extremes. We don't get both the absurdity or the deep philosophy anymore. And also because they think that winning a Hugo means catering to the for lack of a better term, the activism du jour. The entire reason they're constantly inserting themselves and their personal agendas into the comics is because they think that'll get them the attention they want.
Mm-hmm. You know,
which is stupid.
much like how nobody likes a poser who's just trying to get in with the quote unquote popular crowd.
It just reminds me of the "Hello, my fellow kids" line all over again.
Oh, that's because it is.
Yeah, but when Steve Buscemi was doing it, it was funny and satirical. When they are doing it, it's not.
Our shenanigans are cheeky and fun.
Their shenanigans are evil and cruel. Or are mean and cruel. Not really shenanigans at all. Evil shenanigans. I swear to God, I'm going to pistol whip the next guy who says shenanigans.
Is the first opportunity that I have to slot it in, I am doing a watch party of Super Troopers so I can inflict that on everybody else in the server.
Man, I wish Super Troopers had become the same type of cult classic with shadowcasts that Rocky Horror is, because there are so many quotable portions of that movie that could really work to that.
Mm-hmm.
But rails.
Yeah. getting back on it. I do recall that the one thing that everybody keeps trying to throw at people with, say, Batman is the whole Batman is a rich guy beating up homeless people.
The Penguin's another rich guy. Two-Face is an ex-DA.
See, Two-Face is an ex-DA. Black Mask is a mob boss. When it comes to the Rogues Gallery, the only person I can think of who would qualify for that straw man is Victor Zsasz.
And Zsasz is a serial killer.
Who is more of a sad case than anything else, and all of the other people were of people who even before they turned to crime were people of high standing or high skill. You know,
High standing, high skill. Yeah.
Victor Fries was a brilliant was and still is a brilliant scientist. Clayface was an accomplished actor, and we've already mentioned Penguin, and I Crest brings
There
up that
was there
silly.
were the like with the whole Batman beating up homeless people thing. There were people at the same time saying that Batman beating up on the Joker was beating up on the mentally ill.
I
Despite the numerous amounts of times that Joker has actually tried to lend that Batman has tried to lend a hand to help Joker, it just never works.
Yeah,
I have to say this. I honestly believe that the Joker, if anything, is smart enough to fake mental illness.
Well, consider the thing is that after The Dark Knight came out, a lot of people tried to do the whole Joker as an agent of chaos thing.
Mm-hmm.
Except he really isn't chaos, because everything he did in that movie was on a particular theme. Put people in the right circumstances and they'll turn against each other. Like the bank heist. There were the orders to take out the people doing the heist to get a bigger share. Everybody gets a share, but less people means a bigger share.
if you want to go back to the actual original comic book origins of the Joker, he was a mass murderer who just had a clown gimmick.
Yeah,
That's all he was. He was just a psychopath, a literal psychopath who was just killing people. He just happened to dress up as a clown as he did it.
And I
He
know
was John Wayne Gacy.
I know that that later on there was the implication that he was one of the many people who took the Red Hood identity. And even the Killing Joke had made fun of the whole issue. If I'm to have a past, I prefer it to be multiple choice.
Yep.
Just to address Fizchozo corner in the chat, most Batman villains aren't mentally ill except ventriloquist. A lot of them do have their own mental illness in some regards. Especially like with ventriloquist and Two-Face, it's a split personality disorder. Penguin is was it megalomaniacalism?
Yep. Megalomania.
Megalomania, thank you very much. A lot of them are actually have signs of mental illnesses in different degrees.
Or personality disorders.
Or personality disorders, which is why a lot of them end up going to Arkham Asylum rather than Blackgate.
Well, I'd also like to say that most the ones that do go to Arkham Asylum that are at least ostensibly mentally ill also go to Arkham Asylum because it's technically supposed to have better security than Blackgate. But both places have
kindergartens have better.
I was going to say both places have terrible security. They have a breakout in either place once a goddamn day, at the very least.
Mm-hmm.
No, but if I had to give the Joker a term for his mental illness, it's not a mental illness. It's a term for a criminal act called malingering. Malingering is where you fake illness, mental or otherwise, for personal gain. And the current iteration of the Joker, he literally says to people, "I'm crazy." No crazy person knows they're crazy, for one. Yeah. And for two, everything he does that is crazy, he's almost entirely aimed at Batman.
Yeah, and a lot of what he does would be placed more under what you would classify a psychopath under. Yeah. And he would be smart enough to game the system to keep getting put in Arkham under the "hey, I'm crazy" defense. Like, the guy is probably a mental level genius.
I wouldn't doubt it. I mean, he did at this point.
Chemical engineering for one thing.
Yeah, I was about to say he did create a laughing gas that puts a smile on a rictus smile on your face and kills you.
Yeah, and it also depends on which version of the Joker you're talking about, because if you go by more recent stories, there have been 3 different Jokers over the span of time.
Which is, man, can we just have Joker, please? Can we just have the Joker? No, better yet, I will define it very simply. Can we just continue to have Mark Hamill Joker, please?
Yeah,
I love me some Heath
unfortunately-
Ledger, but yeah, Mark Hamill Joker.
At least with that, you wouldn't have these attempts to try and do Joker like a slasher villain who cut off his own face for reasons. God, that was stupid.
Yeah, that was a dumb idea. And Hamill has said that since Kevin Conroy has passed, he will never do Joker again, unfortunately.
Yeah, I don't mean that Hamill literally does the Joker, but the personality and the evocation of that character.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, the Bruce Timm version.
Yes. Also, Cress in chat says that his favorite Batman villain is Bane, tactician with muscles.
Yeah,
which I can agree, because Bane is one of the few villains who figured out Batman by himself.
Yeah, it's just his main weakness is that he has an addictive personality and a steroid addiction, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And whenever it comes to this idea of what if people going, it's ridiculous that Batman doesn't take out his enemies. That question was already answered back in the 90s with Nightfall. Because everybody remembers Nightfall for introducing Bane, but everybody ends up forgetting, conveniently I'd add, the other person who was introduced. Azrael. Who was more or less meant to be the answer to that question of, well, what if Batman killed? Well, what if Batman was a 90s-style edgy killer? Well, here's your answer to that.
What if Batman was a religious crusader?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm going to be honest, I liked the Azrael run. It was fun.
But the point is that it's something that's already been done, and as far as I know that people try to say that the Batman Who Laughs is the dark opposite. I'd say if anybody's the dark opposite of Batman, it's characters like Owlman or maybe Prometheus. Okay, Prometheus is a bit of a stretch, but Owlman, especially Crime Syndicate Owlman, is not. Especially since he was such a nihilist.
See, personally, I don't like bringing up Owlman in that conversation. Like, I don't think comparing him to Elseworld versions of himself is a fair or apt comparison. Because it's like, it'd be like taking, communist Batman and trying to compare him to normal Batman. It just doesn't work.
I can kind of see it. The reason why I bring that up is the idea of a lot of times when people try and say that a certain character is the dark opposite of the hero, often it's done with the mindset of a child.
Yeah, it's all surface level opposites.
And with some of the issues that we've talked about, like the whole Batman and Tony losing all their money kind of stuff, or Spider-Man can't be, or these characters can't get hitched or anything like that. What that ends up showing me is a fixation on the surface level, because you don't need to do that much thought. They want that Hugo Award. They want to be looked at as real writers, and I'd say some of them want that Netflix money, but they're not. But they don't want the talent or the work that kind of thing requires. instead they want an easy route. But more importantly, the same writers want to insist that their shit doesn't stink, that it's you who has the problem, and then act surprised that nobody wants to put up with their shit.
Hi, Gal Simone.
Gail Simone, who's probably stepping in shoe crud, and who ended up causing far more damage with that little controversy she caused with the whole refrigerator thing. And
Yeah. Like that's the biggest thing about a lot of these writers is that they don't see what they're doing to the brand. And you can sit there and present them every bit of evidence on the planet. Like you could turn around and go, here's the numbers of your own book. Can you see that downward trajectory that the numbers are doing? That means that your shit isn't working. Change it. No, it's working because it's great in this category and that category. No, it's not, dude. You just need to actually look and listen at what people are saying. If they're saying that your book is sucking, change course, or your book's going to be cancelled. But when the book is cancelled, they start with the istinphobes.
Yeah. I'd like to see where this mythical modern audience is, because it doesn't exist. The grass is greener on the other side only because that green is full of radiation. But of course, there was that whole thing with Kelly Sue DeConnick, who had said, "If you don't like my politics, don't buy my book," and everybody else said, "I bet," and nobody.
Your terms are acceptable.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's the biggest and dumbest thing that any writer can say is, if you don't like what I'm doing, don't buy my book, because everybody will go, "Yeah, we'll do that."
Mm-hmm.
Don't try and tell your audience to go fuck themselves. Don't tell your audience not to buy your books. Don't tell your audience that it's their fault. That's the 3 easiest ways to make sure that your book is going to be cancelled inside of 6 months.
Mm-hmm. And especially don't do something stupid with it and then get surprised that people call you out, like the whole Hail Hydra thing with Cap.
I had only just forgotten about that. Thank you very much.
I refuse to forget it. Because
and much like we always say, if we suffer, you all suffer with us.
But one of the arguments that gets brought up quite a bit, we talked about before you came on, and that is this attempt to try and do a fusion dance with graphic novels and with the label of graphic novels and lumping together both comics and manga under that. And the ironic thing is that in doing that, you end up getting stats that are effectively useless.
If anything, when you actually look at what's going on, it's a lot worse for them than they think, because it's obvious people want comics. It's just, if you're not going to get them, they'll get them elsewhere.
And let me do a bit of digging, see if I can. Obviously, so let's look at the December numbers on Comic-Con. I know some people don't like Comic-Con, but when it comes to getting resources for this, it's the best that I can get. So let's see when it comes to right. Okay. Right now, unfortunately, I can't even vouch for this, because it's just showing me advance orders or reorders, and you gotta go into the 20s before. You gotta go into the teens before I start seeing stuff from Marvel. the advance orders from October 30th to November 5th, 2013. The top advanced comic was Something is Killing the Children, number 35 from Boom. The new series debut that was the top advance orders is Stuff of Nightmares Sleigh Ride number 1, also from Boom. And of course, I will note that it's a bit harder to get numbers these days because of the fact that the big two have shifted away from Diamond and into other stuff like Random House or Penguin or Luna or the like, which aren't as transparent with their numbers. Can't imagine why. but this idea of mixing manga and comics together under the umbrella of graphic novels means that you get a bunch of numbers, but not numbers that really tell you anything. That yeah, these things are selling, but imagine if it was 90% manga and 10% comics, which would more or
That
less
might not be too far off from reality right now.
yeah. But if you just add those two into a bigger number, what is that actually telling you? Aside from a lot of people bought a lot of books in a given month. Hell, if we really want to disprove that, all we have to do is just go to any bookstore in our areas and just look at how big the graphic novel section is versus the manga section. And in fact, a while back, Monarch, when we were initially planning on doing this, I think I shared with you a video that Nerdrotic did where it was not only the back wall but an entire corner and change of a Barnes and Noble that he was recording that thing in.
Oh, the absolute insanity between the difference of the comics and manga sections are it's nuts.
It was absolutely insane, and it's one of those proof is in the pudding kind of situations. I wish I could still find that particular clip because it's one of those moments of brilliance. Because one can't really argue against that with hyperbole. It is, and there's plenty of cases of that being seen.
There's the clip. I just sent it to you.
So thank you very much. I'm gonna put this in council so you guys can see it.
Oh yeah, I probably should have just dropped it there.
Probably should put the VX at the beginning of Twitter there, Monk.
Done.
Yup.
And yeah, as you can see, it just keeps going and going and going. Like you've got a couple shelves of graphic novels, and actually more like I'd say 6 shelves worth, and then 5, 6, 7. Round the corner we go. 8, 9, 10, 11, 12.
Next corner.
13, 14, 15. Next corner. It just keeps going.
Next corner, going around and going around and going around and going around.
Yep.
It is the Energizer Bunny.
Mm-hmm. And then going on the other side as well.
Mm-hmm. Round and round we go. Where it stops, nobody knows.
Mm-hmm. And of course, when you have that kind of effect, there's going to be people who will try and make whatever argument they can pull out of their ass to say what is reality is not, and that it's either a conspiracy or something else. When in reality, there's a reason why I have a certain phrase in my vernacular. One is a anomaly, twice is a coincidence, 3 times is a pattern.
Mm-hmm.
And I've seen some of Eric July's videos, and he keeps talking about audience enthusiasm. Like the closest thing to anything comic related that I was that aside from indies that I was enthusiastic about, or at least had a passing interest, is the recent news with City of Heroes. Which I'm not sure if you're familiar, Mace. NC Soft decided to give the people who are doing the City of Heroes private server Homecoming an official license to continue development.
Yes, I did hear about that the other day.
Mm-hmm.
It was, and that's probably one of the good things. Is like, and it's a very rare instance in and of itself.
Yeah.
Is when you have a company that is willing to turn around and go, "Hey, you're doing something. We're not doing anything with the license or anything. Look, we'll give you the rights to continue doing your own thing, and we'll even approve of it. But if we decide to redo this and put this out ourselves, because we are still the license holder, we can sort of tell you, hey, stop because we're doing this. But in the meanwhile, go for it.
Or just do what old Rooster Teeth did and just hire them.
Yeah, but look at how that's worked out.
Well, that's a whole other story, and one of these days I will give Rooster Teeth their proper roasting, especially since I can lord over Miles Luna and Carrie Shawcross once again, as if I didn't do that enough times with the Ruby reconstruction, where you could make a drinking game out of the number of times I take pot shots at them, saying that they were jingling keys in front of me.
No, don't make that a drinking game. You'll drink yourselves to death, people.
I will say, don't make that a drinking game unless you're a Scot.
Oh, then I can do it. That's right. That's all right. I can still do it.
But you'll notice that whenever somebody is blunt and doesn't go along with the fantasy, that now that they've been referred to it as such, I'll stick with the name cancel pigs, really start reading at that person, especially if they can't control them. Yes, we had that with Mark Miller, but we've also had that a fair amount of times with Todd McFarlane because he had the gall to tell the truth. I know some people, and hey, it's Bill, Mister 7 Hours himself.
It's all their fault. I blame both him and Ken. They got so drunk they just kept talking and it kept getting into philosophy and other things.
And
It's all their fault.
And talking shit about certain states.
Remember, the monk is very petty. He will not let that go, Bill. Or in the words of Telltale Studios, Monk will remember that.
But I think one of the early case of the whole cancel pigs with McFarlane was when he had made that remark about female action figures not selling, and a lot of people got really pissy at him. But he's been running his toy company for like 25 years by this point.
Long enough.
And even if that wasn't the case, I keep seeing videos from World Class Bullshitters showing characters like Riri Williams and the like not selling to the point where there are just piles and piles of that shit at Ollie's. You know, the place where toys go to die. Oh, more recently, I started seeing some D&D board games at Ollie's.
To quote Dr. Katz, and nothing of value was lost.
And of course, I do And maybe you can give some insight on this given your background, Mace. But I do remember that a lot of toy collectors, when it came to Star Wars, did not care for the increased size when they started pushing the Black Series.
Can't really sort of say much on that. I'm not a Star Wars collector, so unfortunately I can't sort of give much
Yeah.
insight.
You're the closest.
I,
You're the closest to having an ear to the ground when it comes to toy collecting, so I figured I'd ask.
That's fair enough. I know a lot of people, especially in the Star Wars sector of toy collecting, it wasn't so much the size, it was price point, quality, and characters availability. There was too many background characters or characters that they didn't want. I don't think the size was the issue. It was also the cost was probably a bit too high for most collectors.
The
Which is
cost,
which is why you can still find a lot of Black Series just sitting around in shops these days.
oh yeah. World Class Bullshitters has a series of videos called Worthless Kingdom. That is just him
Yeah,
going to
love
different
that series.
stores and finding just piles and piles of the shit. But would you say it was a case of increased price without increased quality? That was the problem?
Yeah, usually that's a big thing is when they start jacking the prices up, but the quality goes down.
Mm-hmm.
At the moment, that's known as the Hasbro effect because like Hasbro's been putting up their price on the Transformers, but the molds have been getting worse and the quality has just been absolutely dog shit.
Wasn't there also that issue with packaging? That they claimed
Yeah,
to be environmentally friendly, yet you're still using fucking cardboard and had a scalper issue?
yep, pretty much. And people would pull the toys out of the box or rip them apart, pull the heads off or something like that, or they just find a way to pull the figure out through the open window and replace it with another figure, take it back for a refund.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've got a few of those. I'm a big collector of the 86 Studio Series Transformers, so the ones based around the 1986 movie.
Mm-hmm.
And the ones that I've got Wheelie, Spike, AC, I think Perceptor, and a few others, which are just open window in cardboard boxes.
Mm-hmm.
And that just drives me nuts. I hate that look. At least those ones have the open packaging, unlike some of the what was it, Spider-Man, Marvel Legends line, which are completely enclosed in cardboard. And they're the ones that have the most common problems with quality of joints snapping or bad paint jobs or whatever, because you can't see the figure when you go to buy it. A big thing with collectors is making sure that you have a quality product when you buy it.
And
Because when you go to resale, those are the quality products that are going to resell.
and to bring it back into comics for a moment, I remember a few years ago, I was seeing a lot of people complaining about page quality and ink quality on individual comics. You know, where the ink was rubbing off on people's fingers.
Yeah, the quality, the paper that they were using was too much like photo paper,
Mm-hmm.
and the ink just wasn't drying properly, which resulted in stuck pages, ink bleeding through onto opposite pages when the book is closed, rubbing off on your fingers, and it's just all around destroys books. And as someone who collects as well, like having that stuff, I'm afraid to pull it out of my collection and reread the book because as soon as I know with those certain issues that if I go to open that, I run the risk of ruining the book just by opening it. Whereas you never had that issue, like even going through into the 90s, you never had that quality issue. Plus, you know, books pre-90s just smelled different. Good old paper.
Mm-hmm.
Loved it.
And I know that some people are like, why is this a big deal? These are just this is just kid stuff. Except the problem is you can't. That's not really an argument you can make anymore. And even when you could make it, um, like there's the claim that it was for that, but you have whole generations who grow up with this and want to continue. And Dreadlore points out, couldn't that be a potential hazard?
The ink bleeds? Yes.
Yes.
Well, depends on which way you look at it. You're not going to get. It's not like you're going up to a fresh painting and just wiping your hand on the paint and then lick your hand.
Mm-hmm.
This is like it's basically probably on the same level of a ballpoint pen that you get that little bit of ink on the side of your finger when it's produced too much ink out of it. It's minimal. It's not toxic or anything like that. So it's not really a potential hazard.
Mm-hmm.
You can't exactly just walk up to a comic book, open it up, and then just lick the page, and half the page comes off on your tongue. It's not that bad, but it's enough that, in a collector's sense, that you get annoyed by it.
Mm-hmm. And I'd say as a bit of a coda, for comic book readers of the big two, I will simply ask this: are you a fan of, how much of a fan of comics are you? Are you a fan of the comic, or is it just the character? Because if it's just the character, then you're gonna get what you're gonna get. But if you're a fan, but if you're a comic book fan, there's no better time than now to decouple yourself from the security blanket of the big two, because the now I'm not going to say that that either of them is going to go belly up, although DC might have might be in a bit more of a precarious position because of the fact that Zaslav wants to cut costs whenever he can because of the amount of debt that was taken with the merger. But when it comes, as the culture runs out anyone with actual talent, the question that has to be asked is much akin to one of our mantras here: games, not names. I just can't apply it to comic books yet because I can't figure out a word that rhymes with comic books that has the same message.
Books, not crooks.
Well, actually, Monk, we do have another maxim that broadly applies to everything entertainment: fans, not fandom.
Yeah, I can go with that. The key thing is being a is that there you can sit in the position that the big two are in and just be miserable every other week, or you can find greener pastures that may not have the same character, but you can become just as much of a fan of a new character as you were with a character that you were a fan of in the past. We didn't come out of our parents being fans of Spider-Man or Superman or Batman. So
you chose the icons you wanted to follow, and there are plenty of well-written stories and characters in the indie scene that can give you those new icons.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's as good of a coda, because if the big two want to claim that the burning house that they're in is fine, then let them burn.
We don't need no water.
Let them cater to their mythical modern audience, and then see what happens.
Mm-hmm. I will simply be sitting back laughing as I'm reading something that actually does fulfill my desire for good stories.
And if you want some suggestions, well, there's a lot of them on the Discord server.
On the Discord server and in this channel, I've covered a few. I just don't have as many opportunities to do that as I do with tabletop.
Yeah. And if you're saying, but I want one of the old guard, well, then you can always go with Spawn.
Yeah,
But that's just catering to myself.
But the other thing is like, if you don't like what is currently being written, there is a huge back catalogue of books for all your favorite characters of all different types of stories and iterations out there that you can go back and look at. Even if you want to stick with the big two, if you're not a fan of current Spider-Man, there's the Marvel Essentials collections out there that retell all the old stories. You can go out there and grab those. If you want to find something different, look at your independents. Look at, things like even IDW, Boom. Sure, they might be subsidiaries of the big two, which is unfortunate these days. But they have a lot of other titles out there that are very well written. Even back catalogue stuff as well. I will always, one of my biggest things I will always say to any comic book reader, if you want to read something that is completely different, that is actually still factual to today's society, go read Transmetropolitan.
I love Transmet. Oh my god.
Transmet is probably one of the top 3 greatest stories ever written in a comic book format. Same with Why the Last Man. Skip the crappy TV adaptation. That was horrible. Read the books. Read the comics. They're still out there. They're in omnibus format. They're in graphic novel format. Go out and buy some of those. Buy some of the older stuff. Go into your comic books. Even just go into your comic book store and say to the guys at the counter or girls at the counter, "Hey, I don't want Marvel or DC. What do you recommend?" Because I can guarantee you, at least here in Australia, the comic book store I go to, they are always recommending independent titles. And as long as there are plenty of places out there that are willing to give you alternatives, you say, hey, I like Batman, Spider-Man, this, that, and the other, they'll go, okay, based on that, you might like this. There's always going to be something new for you to read without having to stay with the big two.
I'd actually like to point out one source that I don't think gets enough credit because it's a pretty new source and they don't have a lot of comics under their label yet, but they are well written. Moist Critical's comic company that he started to start publishing his Godslap comic is actually sponsoring comics of other types, including comics with stories written by other YouTubers that also have pretty well written stories. There's one coming up for Jacksepticeye's whole how he used to do characters in his shows, and now they're all superheroes in his comic.
Yeah,
it's
even going on to going on the like Kickstarter and looking through the comics sections.
Exactly,
yeah, it's a bit more risky, but you find that there are a lot of people out there that are sick of the way the main comic book scene is going today, that are making their own titles, and they're only going to be funded if people put the money behind them. So go look up things like Kickstarter and have a look in the comic section. You might find something by a good writer that you might have looked at something they've done in the past. All of a sudden, they're going independent and putting out their own book. There's 1,000,001 different ways that you can get a hold of a comic book. And people need to take more advantage of that.
If there's any coda that I have with this is, we are in a position where you no longer have an excuse, and any bit of cynicism right now is nothing but a performance. The performative cynicism that we rail on. And I'd say that's as perfect of a quota for this particular GeekWatch. Now, as far as what we've got coming down the pipe, we will be doing a discussing stream tomorrow or at 7, covering Ben Riggs's infamous rant about the golden age of TTRPGs being dead, because oh boy, did he make some dumb shit.
It's gonna be fun. We're gonna tear him down a few notches or so.
I mean, I probably won't be there, and I've only seen the title, but I will just throw my opinion in now. That was fucking stupid.
Oh, it gets worse.
All I'm going to say is happy hunting, boys.
Tuesday, I'll be talking with the YouTuber talking about games. Him and I it's another case where we tend to cover the same games by accident. So I figured why not reach out to him. Especially after he brutally had some takes on a certain French Canadian that we've had a run in with.
Oh no! Which one? Both of them or the redhead?
Maxine.
Oh my god!
um,
Why?
Wednesday, I'm not gonna go into details on that here. Wednesday, I will be talking with Sam Cusack again because his particular game Henshin is kickstarting an expansion that covers extra characters in Sentai. That's basically the theme. Thursday.
So we shouldn't see you for Dynamite.
I'll probably be late for Dynamite. My interviews usually only go about an hour, and when I do them, it's around 7. So I'll probably end up being there for the latter half of Dynamite. Is how it goes. Thursday. Monarch and I will be concluding our look at Sufficiently Advanced 2nd Edition, covering the technology chapter and then giving our final thoughts. Friday, Zan and I will be beginning the first proper season since Planet Bound, covering Dames of Astoria because I promised Dead Tree Studios I was going to cover it.
And I really wanted to cover it until we got Planet Bound in hand.
Mm-hmm.
So it all works together.
Yeah. Saturday, I'll be interviewing Nick Frankia, who is the guy who's currently bringing Mecha into the Year Zero engine, even making a "getting the damn robot" Shinji joke when he was doing his early promotion. That game being Eldritch Automata.
And then also,
oh yeah, and that same Saturday, we will be doing a roundtable discussion on Twitch covering the aftermath of the Emberwind campaign, and Derek Chung will be back talking with us about it, along with most of the crew. Sunday, Ed Jowett is going to be returning to the temple to talk about his next project in his Era universe called Era Dreadwest. And of course, we'll be back with GeekWatch, and I had to do a bit of calling an audible for the schedule because of recent events, which we will get into next week. But most importantly, starting late Monday nights around 10 p.m. Central, I will be returning to gaming on Twitch. I will note, if you're expecting me to stream Fortnite or something, you should know better. I'm not doing that. I'm going to be doing another extension of what I've been doing for the past 9 years, and that is showcasing what's out there. So I hope you all look forward to it. But until then, on behalf of the good brothers present and not present, my name is Mildra. I am your gaming monk. Oh, nope.
you almost fucked it up.
I almost fucked it up. I almost botched.
Take 2.
Take 2. Join the watch.